Mary was excited yet nervous as she walked into a small church for the first time. Her husband, Pastor John, had just been appointed as a new pastor of the church, and this was their first Sunday together. Mary was young, only 23, and many of the congregation whispered as they watched her, "She's too young to be pastor's wife." One lady said quietly, "What does she know about guiding a church?" Mary heard the whispers but kept a kind smile on her face. She had always been shy, and the thought of people judging her made her stomach at rest. But she loved John and she knew how much this meant to him. So she stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly as the service began. After the service, the congregation gathered outside to chat. Mary tried to join in, but it seemed like no one noticed her. The older women were busy talking about their own lives, and the young ones didn't seem interested in what Mary had to say. She felt like an outsider, unwanted and unimportant. When she tried to offer help with organizing the church event, the women politely declined. "We've got it covered, dear," Mr. Thompson, the head of women's group, said with a tight smile. Mary nodded and stepped back, feeling even more out of place. It was clear that they didn't think she was capable of much. Mary spent most of her days alone in the small house next to the church. John was often busy with the pastoral duties, and Mary didn't want to bother him with her worries. She wished she could find a way to be useful, to show the congregation that she wasn't just a young girl with no experience. But every time she tried to reach out, she was met with polite dismissal. The loneliness grew, wrapping around her like a heavy blanket. She began to doubt herself, wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe she wasn't cut out to be a pastor's wife. One evening, as Mary was sitting on the porch, an old man walked by. She was bent over with age, with gray hair tied in a loose bun. She smiled warmly at Mary. "Good evening, dear. You look troubled." Mary was taken back by the woman's kind eyes and gentle voice. "I'm just feeling a bit lonely," she admitted. The woman nodded. "It's hard to be in a new place where people don't understand you. But remember, strength isn't always shown in a louder words or big actions. Sometimes it's the quiet ones who have the most to give." Mary pondered the woman's words long after she had left. There was something about her that seemed familiar, but Mary couldn't place it. Still, her words brought a small spark of hope to Mary's heart. A few weeks later, the church was thrown into chaos. A severe storm had damaged the roof, and the water had leaked into the building, ruining many of the carpets and the documents of the church. The church didn't have enough funds to repair everything, and the congregation was in despair. Pastor John called a meeting to discuss what to do. Everyone was upset, and no one seemed to have a solution. Mary sat quietly at the back, listening to the arguments. She knew she had to do something, but what? Suddenly, an idea struck her. It was bold, and it scared her, but she knew it could work. Summoning all her courage, she stood up. "I have an idea," she said, her voice shaking slightly. The room went silent, and all eyes turned to her. Mary felt a wave of fear, but she pushed it aside. She explained her plan to organize a community event to raise money for repairs. She suggested involving the entire town, not just the congregation, to show how much the church meant for everyone. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Mr. Thompson spoke up. "That's actually a good idea," she said slowly, and others nodded in agreement. Mary couldn't believe it. They were actually listening to her. Mary threw herself into planning the event. She contacted the local businesses, set up meetings, and even designed flyers to spread the word. At first, the other women were undermining her, but as they saw how dedicated and organized Mary was, they began to hope. Mary worked harder than she ever had before. She stayed up late making phone calls and organizing details. Every time she felt like giving up, she remembered the old man's words. Strength isn't always loud. She could do this, even if she wasn't experienced as the others. The day of the event arrived, and the whole town turned out. There were games for children, food stalls, and even small concerts. People from all over the town came to support the church, and by the end of the day, they had raised more than enough money for the repairs. As the sun set, Mary looked around at the smiling faces and felt warmth in her heart. She had done it. She had proven that she wasn't just a young, inexperienced girl. She had shown them that she had something to offer. After the success of the event, the congregation began to see Mary in a new light. They realized how wrong they had been to underestimate her. Slowly, they started including her in their plans and asking for her opinions. Mary was no longer the shy young woman on the sidelines. She had become a valued member of the church community. Mary continued to show her strength through kindness and understanding. She helped organize more events, supported the women in church, and started a small group of young mothers. Her gentle nature and quiet strength began to touch everyone in the congregation. People started coming to her for advice, and Mary found that she had a gift for listening and offering comfort. The more she helped others, the more her confidence grew. She was no longer just a pastor's wife. She was Mary, a pillar of the church. One day, a crisis struck the church again. A young girl in the congregation fell seriously ill, and the doctors didn't know what was wrong. The entire church gathered to pray for her, but the situation looked bleak. Mary felt a deep sadness for the girl and her family. She wanted to hope, but she didn't know how. That night, she knelt by her bed and prayed with all her heart, asking for strength and guidance. In the morning, she had a feeling in her heart, a quite peaceful feeling that everything would be okay. She went to visit the girl and her family, bringing them food and offering words of comfort. She stayed with them for hours, praying silently and holding their hands. Few days later, the girl began to recover. The doctors were baffled, but the congregation believed it was a miracle. They were overjoyed, and many of them credited Mary's faith and kindness for Gallo's recovery. This event further solidifies Mary's place in the church. People began to see her as someone with a deep connection to God, someone whose faith would move mountains. Mary was humbled by their praise, but knew it was her quiet strength and love that had made the difference. Just when everything seemed to be going well, a new challenge arose. A member of the church, Mr. Johnson, started spreading rumors about Mary. He was jealous of the attention she was getting and wanted to bring her down. The rumors were nasty and unfounded, but they began to spread, and people who had once supported Mary started to doubt her, and she could feel the coldness in their eyes. She was hurt, deeply hurt, but she refused to let it break her. Mary knew she had to confront Mrs. Johnson, but she didn't want to do it with anger. Instead, she prayed for guidance and went to see her. When she arrived at her place, She looked surprised, a little ashamed. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson," she said softly, "I've heard the things you've been saying about me. I don't know why you feel this way, but I want you to know that I forgive you." Mrs. Johnson was stunned. She had expected anger, not forgiveness. She hugged his head, ashamed of his actions. "I'm sorry, Mary," she said quietly. "I didn't realize how wrong I was." Mary smiled gently. "It's okay. We all make mistakes. Let's work together to make the church a better place." Word of Mary's forgiveness spread through the church, and the congregation were moved by her kindness. They realized that they had allowed jealousy and gossip to cloud their judgment. The church members came together, apologizing to Mary and vowing to do better. The church became stronger than ever, united by Mary's example of forgiveness and love. She had shown them that true strength wasn't in power or control, but in kindness, humility, and faith. With the congregation now fully behind her, Mary began to expand her ministry. She started a program of elderly, visiting them in their homes and making sure they had everything they needed. She also began teaching the children in Sunday school, sharing stories of love, faith, and forgiveness. One afternoon, as Mary was preparing for her next Sunday school lessons, she had a knock at the door. When she opened it, she was surprised to see the elderly woman who had spoken to her on the porch months ago. "Hello, dear," the woman said with a warm smile. "I've heard of all the wonderful things you've done." Mary invited her inside, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I remember the words you said to me that day," Mary said. "They gave me the courage to keep going." The old woman nodded. Sometimes we need a little reminder of the strength we have inside. She took Mary's hand in hers and gave it a gentle squeeze. "You've done well, Mary. But remember, the journey of faith is never over. There will always be more challenges, but you've proven that you can face them with grace." Mary felt tears well up in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. "Thank you," she whispered. As the woman left, Mary noticed something strange. She wouldn't remember seeing the woman in church or around town. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere. But Mary didn't question it. She felt in her heart that the woman had been sent to her for a reason. That night, as she prayed, Mary felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that no matter what challenges laid ahead, she had the strength to overcome them. She also realized that the greatest gift she had been given was the ability to see the good in others and to bring out the best in them. Just when everything seemed to be going perfectly, a disaster struck. A fire broke out in the church late one night, destroying much of the building. The congregation were devastated. The church had become a second home to so many, and now it is lay in ruins. Pastor John was heartbroken, and Mary felt a deep sorrow as well. But she knew she couldn't let despair take over. The church was more than just a building. It was a community, and communities could rebuild stronger than before. The next day, Mary called an emergency meeting. She stood in front of the congregation, her voice strong and steady. "This fire has taken our building, but it hasn't taken our faith. We will rebuild and we will do it together." The congregation looked at her with admiration and hope. They had seen Mary overcome challenges before, and they believed in her. People from all over the town offered to help, donating their time, money, and materials. Mary organized everything, just as she had done the fundraiser. She coordinated the volunteers, made sure everyone had a job to do. She kept everyone's spirit up with positive attitude. After months of hard work, the church was finally rebuilt. It was more beautiful than ever, with new stained glass windows, refreshed paint, and sturdy pillars. One day, on the grand opening, the church was filled with brim with people from town and beyond. Pastor John gave a moving sermon about resilience, faith, and the power of community. But it was Mary who everyone wanted to thank. She had been a driving force beyond the rebuilding, the one who had kept everyone's spirit up when things were dark on their side. As Mary looked around at the faces in the crowd, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had found her place, not just as a pastor's wife, but as a leader in her own right way. As the church continued to grow, Mary was often praised for her efforts, but she knew she had to remain humble. She reminded herself that everything she did was for the glory of God, not for her recognition. One day, a young woman approached Mary after the service. "You're so amazing," the woman said. "I wish I could be strong and kind as you." Mary smiled gently. "Thank you, but remember, strength isn't being about perfect. It's about doing your best, even when things are hard. And kindness comes from seeing the good in others, even when they can't see it themselves." The young woman nodded, inspired by Mary's words. Mary knew that she had to continue leading by example, showing others that true strength can come from humility and love. One day, as Mary was attending to the church garden, she noticed a man standing at the edge of the property. She looked rough and tired, his clothes worn and his face lined with worry. Mary approached him with a kind smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. The man hesitated before speaking. "I've heard about this church, about a woman who has done so much good here. I need help." Mary listened as the man told his story. He had lost his job, his home, and his family was struggling. He had heard of a church's kindness and he had come to seek aid. Without hesitation, Mary offered him food, clothes, and a place to stay. She also arranged for him to meet with a local business owner who was looking for someone to hire. The man was overwhelmed with gratitude. "You didn't even know me, yet you helped me," he said, tears in his eyes. Mary simply smiled. "We all God's children, and it's our duty to help each other." A money story spread through the town, and more people began coming to the church, seeking help and guidance. Mary made sure that everyone who came through the doors was treated with compassion and respect. She knew that many of them were just looking for someone to believe in, and she was determined to be that person. Her compassion became more cornerstone of the church's ministry, and soon the congregation was known far and wide for their kindness and generosity. People from all walks of life found a place in the church, and the community grew stronger and more united. As Mary grew older, she began to think about the legacy she would leave behind. She didn't have the wealth of fame, but she had something far more valuable, a life lived in service to others. She had shown the power of quiet strength, the importance of compassion, and the beauty of forgiveness. One evening, as she sat on the porch with Pastor John, she looked out at the church, now filled with life and love. "We've done it well, haven't we?" she said softly. John nodded, taking her hand in his. "We have, Mary. and it's because of you. Mary smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. She knew that the church would continue to thrive long after she had gone, because of the seed of love and faith she had planted. She knew that her story would live on the hearts of those she had touched, a statement of power, of humble heart, and a life dedicated to serving others. Thank you so much for reaching this far, and thank you so much for watching. Guys, what I want to say about this story when I'm summarizing it: don't lose faith, don't lose hope, and believe in yourself, believe that you can. In that position that you're in, you have a reason. God has a reason why He placed you in that position. Please just do what you have to do. Just believe in yourself. Don't mind about what people are saying, as long as you're doing the right thing. So bye bye guys. Just leave something in the comment section. Leave something for me in the comment section. How was the story? How was the character? Just give it to me all in the comment section. And bye bye. See you in my next video. May God bless you. If you're out there, you sick, may God heal you. If you're looking for a job, may He provide. In Jesus' name I've prayed. Amen.